I wish I knew how to quit you.
Then why don't you?
This is Codependent Content, a podcast where my partner and I discuss the TV shows, movies, and video games in which we've formed an unhealthy relationship. My name is Mattias, and my co-host is Shannon Riley. Join us each week as we try to make sense of the media we continually give our hearts against our better judgment, and commiserate with us as we struggle and fail to let go of the characters, stories, and worlds that we are entangled with. Because just when we think we're done with content, it draws us back in. Okay, Shannon, the moment you've been waiting for is here.
Whoops.
We are talking today about, what is it?
Star Trek, Strange New Worlds.
Okay. You can speak louder than that. You can be more excited.
Star Trek, Strange New Worlds.
Great. That's...
Too loud?
She's a personal trainer and she does classes and she has to yell at people all the time. But then whenever she gets here and she has a voice, this microphone says you have a voice, Shannon. This is for...
I'm getting intimate with
And
this
then
mic.
you're
I'm not
just like-
trying to yell at it. I'm trying to coax it into my inner world.
But the audience wants to hear from you, Shannon.
Oh,
They
you want me
love
to
you.
shout?
In fact, they love you so much. Some of the comments that I got from last week's episode, which was a bonus episode, our first bonus episode, was how much they loved hearing about your dance experience. They don't
Aw.
get to hear much about those things, you know?
Yeah.
And especially worlds that you don't often get to go into, you know? Just also, I think what Star Trek is ultimately about too, which is interesting. So just some tidbits.
That's so nice.
Speaking of that little feedback and having a bonus episode, just briefly, for those who are joining us, maybe this is their first time, things like that, or maybe you're revisiting us and maybe you missed those episodes last week and a little less than a week before that, we actually released 2 episodes since we last talked about Yellow Jackets, and we released an episode about Across the Spiderverse, Spider-Man, which is doing very, very well at the box office. We know you've seen it, but Shannon, I need to mention that there's a lot of people, there's multiple reasons for this, but anytime we finish a show and then we do a movie, there's a huge drop-off
Sure.
on, I guess, viewership, listeners, audience, in terms of our analytics and stuff like that, which is not a huge problem. It makes sense. Not everyone sees a movie right after it comes out.
Right.
Maybe you missed the first weekend and you didn't want to spoil anything, so you didn't listen to the episode. Or maybe you were just listening to us for Yellow Jackets and, you know, we moved on to something and you're not interested. Or maybe you're just waiting, you know, for Star Trek. Whatever the deal may be, it's not unheard of. But I think, especially with our bonus episode, that was some of the best conversations we've had
Yeah.
in terms of content and why we started the podcast. And I really, really enjoyed at least a bonus episode. I think both episodes are really, really good. So I encourage anyone who missed those things, if you're just now catching up to the movie, or you're just listening to us the first time and you didn't know that we had it, go find the Across the Spiderverse episodes and please give it a listen. Show us you care, and leave some feedback. I hope you enjoy the conversation as much as we had having the conversation.
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Any more thoughts? Anything you want to tell
Also,
people?
just like leave a comment. And I know everyone says that because it helps the algorithm or analytics or whatever. I want people to leave a comment because I want to hear how these stories impact y'all too. It's really fun for Mattias and I to sit here and talk about our feelings and the way that we see media, but every person is going to experience media differently. And I think that's the magic of movies and television. So if there's anything that we talk about that makes you feel a feel, we would love to see that too, because it can just generate more conversation to be had.
For sure. And especially let us know what you thought of the bonus episode. That was something that we were, it was an idea that I had, and it was less about the content, more about our feelings about it. I feel like the bonus episode, even though it's technically not a real episode, or a numbered episode. It was an additional conversation. I feel like was exactly why we kind of started the podcast. It's because we were having conversations like that, and is why codependent content exists. So I'd be curious to see what other people think about it. You know, we often, like I was in the office this week, and a lot of the people I work with are VFX artists, and we're working on some like animation of our own. And so a lot of people, one person went to go see Across the Spiderverse last night, and so everyone in the office who's seen it were like kind of talking about it, you know. But to me, it's very surface level. And any conversation I can have in like an office setting, like a lot of times you might be in a situation where when you're talking about things, you can only go so far, right? I liked it. What was cool, like your favorite scenes, things like that. You know, everyone kind of has the same stuff that they regurgitate over and over again. But then when you start to dig deep into the content and you find some time to have those conversations with yourself and just kind of internalize it, you get to, you know, a lot more out of it than you might have. And we don't often get to have those conversations. Right. And so I think that's what was great about last week, and what's great about this podcast is that we are doing that. So I implore anyone to go listen to that bonus episode specifically. So yeah, Shannon, we, as usual, have been watching a lot of things. Some things we are wanting to talk about, some things we are not wanting to talk about. Obviously, we only have one podcast and one show that we can do. So there's right now we're talking about Star Trek, but is there anything you want to mention about anything we've been watching specifically? Do you want to talk about The Idol?
Oh God.
You can say
we
no.
can we can touch. Star Trek is so warm and curious and loyal, and so like Star Trek is everything that I like aspire to be.
Sure.
And The Idol is everything that I like don't like about media sometimes. So I just have to put a different hat on here. But I would love to get my not fully formed opinions out on The Idol. So if y'all have been living under a rock, there's a new show on HBO called The Idol. It follows the traumas and trials of a suffering pop star and the posse around her, as well as a sex cult leader.
Created by, we should mention, written and created by Sam Levinson, who created Euphoria.
And The
wrote
Weeknd.
Assassination Nation and... something in Marie. There was a bunch of different things that he's had his hand in recently. And then, yes, Abel is his name, right? The Weeknd, going by his, also helped write this. I'm assuming consulted on the musical industry world is basically what he contributed.
Yeah.
Who knows? Whatever. But they are the creators of the show. And so if you liked Euphoria, or if you watched Euphoria or anything else by Sam Levinson, then you kind of understand what you're going into. So yeah,
right.
Continue.
And I am speaking as a Euphoria fan. I know it is essentially a show about teenagers struggling with depression and doing a lot of sex stuff. But I will admit, you know, I enjoy the show. I really do. I look forward to it every time it's on. So I'm here to say that when I first heard about The Idol, I was like, ooh, another kind of like sexy commentary show about mental health and things that are going on. I was interested in it. And then reviews started coming out. And the reviews kind of left a bad taste in my mouth. So I went in feeling judgmental before I even saw the first episode. I don't know if that would have changed my opinion at all, but the reviews are not great, and I'm not going to speak to them. I'm just going to speak to my own experience about it. I have a problem with this show, not because it's too sexy or too focused on like exposing the female body or too whatever, to this, to that. It's just the fact that the show gives me the ick. And I think it has a lot to do with the direction and the writing. And I heard that the only like female creative on the team left, and they reshot all the episodes because the director said that it was leaning too far into like a feminine gaze. So they reshot the first 4 episodes.
That's the rumor people have denied all the things that have been said about the tumultuous behind the scenes of the show. Is just something. So these are like alleged. We don't actually know what happened or what was actually said, or why someone left, because it's all right now just kind of speculation or rumor, so it's just kind of worth mentioning. But
I will say, if there's any truth to that, I can kind of see it. And it's been hard to put my finger on exactly why I don't like the show, but it is just overall, like, it makes me uncomfortable. It doesn't feel like commentary. It feels like self-importance, that like these two male director, writer, producer types came in and decided they had a story to tell that features a young woman, but ultimately it's still the young woman through the eyes of a man, and like women and their experience through the male gaze. And I want to like it because Lily Rose Depp, the main actress, has been very vocal about her support for the show, for her role, her experience on set. And if all of that is true and to be believed, then I think it should be celebrated that she's finding so much like power and freedom and expression in a role that allows her to tap into all these weird, dark, sexy, tumultuous emotions. But it just doesn't feel that way to me when I watch it. And we watch a lot of media, so I feel like, why isn't it landing? Why doesn't it feel authentic?
Well, yeah, and it should be noted that the process often feels and looks differently than what actually ends up on screen and in the editing room, which is why she might have been so supportive of it, because like, she thought she was making one thing and it turns out to be another. Who knows what's going on there? I agree with Shannon's thoughts and disagree in a certain way. Like, mostly my problem with the show is the same thing I had with there was the Euphoria in between season 1 and 2. There was like the Euphoria films. One focused on Zendaya's character, one focused on Hunter Schafer's character, and Hunter helped write her story. I can't remember what it was called, what the title of it was, and that one unfortunately was the weaker of the two, just because it felt like someone who was like young and first time writing, that kind of thing, and I know Sam Levinson helped, but it still felt like first time screenwriter kind of thing. Unfortunately, this feels the same way. So now I know that Sam Levinson, sometimes he finds a lot of his work like in the production of it. Like a lot of the creativity comes in like in the making of it. But the writing here just feels like someone who wrote it like a college student filmmaker who thinks they're really good and like thinks they have something to say, and then wrote it and doesn't know actually anything about the music industry or how things work, but thinks they're taking like a biting example of like what the music industry is, and a very edgy and very like on the things like that. But it's not that. Like it doesn't feel like that at all. Like it feels way off base.
I agree.
And I don't know anything about the music industry, so maybe it is like this, but like the things just feel so exaggerated. So like the tone is super off. Like the first scene, spoiler, is about her at a photo shoot, and then there's a intimacy coordinator there making sure like, hey, your writer doesn't have nudity in it. We need to make sure things are like on the up and up before we do things. And then they lock the
intimacy coordinator in the bathroom.
In the bathroom, which is not cool. And like, and I get it. It's like trying to make a commentary, but like they do it to be humorous, but I'm not laughing, like that. None of that scene was funny to me, and I'm like, if this was supposed to be funny, like I can see where you're trying, where the joke is, but I'm still not laughing. And so the tone is off all the way. There is a part of it where the ick is kind of supposed to be there. I don't think you're supposed to like The Weeknd's character. He's supposed to give you like certain feelings, but also they don't give us any reason why he is so enigmatic that Jocelyn would be, or whatever. Like it doesn't make any sense, like why the relationship happens in the first place. So there's a lot of weird suspension of disbelief going on. So yeah, it just doesn't feel right. I'm still gonna watch it because I want to know what it is trying to say ultimately, but because I don't know what it's trying to say, or I think there's a lot of people who like can see this and maybe they are seeing it in a better light, but personally it just feels kind of juvenile.
I also feel like the assistant, the girl from Bodies, whose name I cannot remember, I almost feel like the assistant is a stand-in for the audience. So if it is supposed to be commentary, she's always like, he's creepy as fuck. What are you doing? Like, let me protect you. This is the way we can do this in like a healthy, safe way. And then all the other characters are just like these big, weird, different. So yeah, I don't know. It feels very self-serious and it feels like it wants to be biting commentary, but ultimately is falling short of that. So if it's not commentary and it's not farce, then like it's just not working for me at all.
Yeah. And this isn't the first kind of show to tackle this kind of subject matter, especially in like a starlet who gets caught up in the machinery of the industry, whatever the industry being. And I've read a script that was like this, like an independent film that was very similar, but like went into like a horror genre kind of thing. And one thing that comes to mind specifically is a movie called Neon Demon by Nicholas Winding Refn, which is Nicholas Winding Refn is a very specific kind of filmmaker that doesn't always hit home with people. But that one had a very like a clear message, clear style, very good deft hand behind the wheel, whether or not you enjoyed it, and very similar. So it's more of like the modeling world. But I mean, like if you're going to do like, I would prefer to watch Neon Demon than this. And I think I would suggest that over if you're talking about similar subject matter. I don't know. We're only 2 episodes in, so it's really hard to judge a TV show, but this is a high profile show that like had, as you said, the rumors on set and the behind the scenes of the Rolling Stone article before it came out. So it's almost like we're watching it happen in real time, kind of like this train wreck, and we're trying to we're like, I'm interested in watching it even though I don't like it and
or want to support it,
and I have no idea if maybe the hatred is coming from the fact that it had this toxic thing, maybe. So it's a weird experience.
Just one more little note of, I read that Lily Rose Depp would avoid The Weeknd unless they were shooting, especially toward the end
like
of the shoot, because he was method acting.
Sure.
And you can have your own opinions on method acting. If it works, it works for you. That's fine. My opinion is
it sucks.
Well, my opinion, as take it for what it's worth, I feel like someone brand new to acting like The Weeknd should not be method acting, because then you're not acting. You're just being a dick to your coworkers because you're in this like, oh, I am Tedros. It's like, well, Tedros is a fucking icky person. So you're just living in the realm of being an icky person for months and months and months.
The only thing I want to say about method acting is the fact that anytime we hear about it, it is about someone being stupid or toxic or whatever it is because of the method acting. And so
wasn't there a Joker? Was it Jared Leto?
Jared Leto did a few things.
Did some crazy shit.
And like, again, some of those are rumors or some of like that were started and not all of them are true. So I don't know what exactly, but it's still like so specifically a rumor that it became like legend. Like people still use it as like a method acting thing. Unfortunately, people also use Heath Ledger as a Joker, like as a method actor, but he wasn't a method actor. There was no method acting going on there. So don't worry. Don't believe people when they say like he was in a dark place or whatever. The most famous method actor exchange is from Dustin Hoffman and Laurence Olivier on Marathon Man, I believe. And the story goes that Dustin Hoffman stayed awake for like 3 days because his character was supposed to be tired or whatever and things like that. And was really in the role. And like he meets up with Laurence Olivier, who's a major actor from the classic era, right? And they meet up before a scene and they're talking and Dustin Hoffman tells him the whole process of what he's been doing and everything. And Laurence says, my boy, have you ever tried acting? So
have you tried it?
That's the famous exchange, and it's not the exact quote, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
So there may be some method actors. If you look at the early days of method acting, if you talk about maybe early Brando and maybe early James Dean, and possibly, I don't know if Paul Newman was method, but he was close to that era. At least they all did the Actors Studio and things like that. But later on, it just became blown out of proportion. I think the other most famous method actor is Daniel Day-Lewis, and he's the only one that has apparently not been problematic. Yes, did he want people to refer to him as President Lincoln whenever he was playing President Lincoln? Yeah, sure, but at least he wasn't problematic about it.
At least you're not sending like fish heads to your coworkers.
So I don't know. We always hear about the bad ones. So I've never been a fan of method acting. But this is not the acting podcast, so maybe we shouldn't. But we are actors, so I feel like we. So that's The Idol. Any other things? I have forgotten everything else we've been watching. I've had a busy week.
I was gonna say, Mattias has been really busy, so we're like 4
Lost.
episodes away from finishing the 2nd season of Lost.
Great.
But we haven't really gotten to the peak, so I say let's wait until we finish the last 4 episodes. We'll hit it on the next podcast.
Hey guys, Lost is pretty cool if you like Yellow Jackets.
Well, it's better than Yellow Jackets, guys.
Sure it is. Yeah, I don't know. Was there anything else?
I literally think that's it. We have not been watching much.
I'm sure there's something, but we need to catch Black Mirror. We'll talk about that next week, I'm sure. So yeah, this week, chat's excited. Yeah. We're finally talking about Star Trek.
Star Trek!
Strange New Worlds, season 2. If you're new to the podcast, this is Codependent Content. We spoil everything as much as we can from the very get-go. I think we'll talk about some general thoughts at least about the episode, but just assume we're going to be spoiling things. We do record this live on Discord, and you can always find us everywhere and engage with us. So if you are listening to this and you're curious like why we keep talking about chat, it's because we got a chat going in the Discord, and you should jump into that. Anyway, so let's just get into it. We have our maybe warp drive-ish. I tried to do something new with the light in the background, which is just accents. I don't even know what this is.
No,
it's cute. Can't even tell.
It's cute.
It's just a bright light. You can kind of see it.
You can see it. No, it's great.
Right there.
So yeah, I just want to reiterate. I'm going to be pulling. So Mattias is new to the Trek universe. I am not as new to the Trek universe. So this podcast is going to be about seeing the show from a new Trekkie's eyes.
Sure.
And I would also like to pull in information that I have from watching like more of the original series. So yes, if you're like, I'm new to Star Trek and I only want to watch Strange New Worlds as the show develops, I am going to spoil things for you in a fun way. But if you're like, I don't want to know anything about anything, then...
There's a lot of lore with Star Trek, we should just say. There's been a lot of TV shows, a lot of things.
14 series and like 15 movies
let's
or something
talk, yeah,
like
let's
that.
talk a little bit. Let's give a little bit of background. So yes, I am a new Star Trek fan in the sense that the only Star Treks I ever kind of like really watched, I did watch a few movies, I believe with Patrick Stewart when I was a kid, but I never got into them. And then I love the J.J. Abrams movies.
Oh, yeah.
But of course, that's blasphemous. That's not really Star Trek, I guess. Whatever.
I disagree.
To some people, I still think they're great movies. Especially the third one with Justin Lin directing, because we know how much I love Justin Lin, because we talked about the Fast and Furious franchise. So there's that. And this is my first time, though, sitting down and watching a show. Now, this is Strange New Worlds. We watched the first season. I fell in love with it. But it is technically a spin-off of what was started in Discovery, even though now I'd say Strange New Worlds is almost alongside parallels, not really a spin-off.
Timeline wise, and I wrote this down because I knew.
But we haven't watched Discovery.
No.
Yeah.
But so I watched the first 2 seasons of Discovery, and then I stopped watching it. I'm going to pick it back up because people keep saying it gets good, so I'm going to give it a second chance. Anyway, so in order, we have Enterprise, which was from like the 2000s.
Okay,
then we're
going all
the way. Here we go. Then we have Discovery seasons 1 and 2, which leads into Strange New Worlds, into the original series, into Next Gen, Deep Space Nine, Voyager, Picard, and then the remainder of Discovery, because there's a big time jump.
Sure.
So it's not a spin-off. It's happening in real time.
Well, that's timeline stuff. I say spin-off because these characters started off. Some of these characters started off in Discovery, right?
No, these characters started off in the original series.
No, I understand that. The actors as these characters started off in Discovery. I believe Pike's whole thing in Strange New Worlds, the first season, is because he has like a vision. Like we start off with his vision of like seeing his future, right? And that vision and that thing came in Discovery from that actor.
Okay.
Is what I'm remembering. So like, I understand that Pike has been around since the original series. Like I get it, but we're also we should mention that like even this version of Spock and this version of Christopher Pike and some of the other characters came from Discovery. So that's why it's like they spun off into this show.
But it is not a spinoff for clarity.
But it is also not a spinoff. It's just a weird kind of like jumping over to this, you know? And these actors, I believe also like the Kirk we see is from Discovery, but we haven't seen Discovery. But there's a kind of a connection to be made there, possibly, but I don't really know. I don't think you have to have seen Discovery to watch Strange New Worlds. But that's just something to mention. It's kind of weird. It's kind of whatever. So yeah, when we first, one of our biggest, one of my first viral TikToks, Shannon, was the first time you got me to sit down and watch Star Trek because we knew this new one was coming out, season 1, and I'm like, I'll give it a shot. I'll watch it with you. And I decided to turn on my phone camera as the credits began to roll, and it's now TikTok famous of you crying because quote,
they
unquote,
did the
thing. The thing being space.
The Final Frontier.
The Final Frontier.
And the little like
the
space whistle. And the music. I still cry, honestly.
And ever since then, people have been wondering, are we going to talk about Star Trek? And so here we are talking about Strange New Worlds and nothing else. Just kidding. So yeah, Shannon, now that we are one season in, we weren't podcasting, but we're back. What are your general thoughts on this return, season 2 of Strange New Worlds?
I am so happy to be back in universe. Like I was saying a little bit earlier, Star Trek to me is like everything that I aspire to be. The pillars of Star Trek are like curiosity and loyalty and exploration and discovery, and just like any positive adjective you can think of is a pillar of like what the Star Trek family is. So I'm happy to be here. I think all the actors have a really strong handle on the characters that they're playing, and in what time the characters are being explored, if that makes sense. I think Mattias had mentioned, for a season opener, it was kind of weird. And I'll let you talk about that in a second. But for me, as a season opener, we just set up so much that is going to happen not only over the course of the next 9 episodes, but that's going to happen for possibly the duration of however long Strange New Worlds runs. So that was really exciting to me because it didn't feel slow or superfluous, because it's like, oh, here's all these little clues that are leading like down the path of what Strange New Worlds is going to be. So I would say overall, like 8 out of 10, it was still a great episode, and I'm excited to dive deeper into like all the shit that's about to go down this season.
Sure. I'm also excited that I don't know anything. It is curious you mentioned like the run of Strange New Worlds, and what's interesting about these shows kind of like going simultaneously in the way that they're trying to do Star Trek again. And it's like, you don't know when one thing will end and the other thing will start, you know? But they did set this up, like I said, with his vision of the future, and the future is 10 years in the future or something,
it's a bit, yeah.
So we have possibly, they're setting up the idea of maybe 10 seasons. They think they might go that long or something. Because we assume that if you're going to start the season with this, or the show with this, then they're going to end with
absolutely
his vision. which is the vision of his death, possibly. And it's always going to be about fate, which we know you love talking about. And how do we change it or embrace it or whatever it is?
I'm so excited.
What
guys.
are the choices we have? I, like I said, loved the first season of Star Trek. Strange New Worlds. It grew on me. I love these characters. I am going to go out on a limb and say this is one of the best versions of Spock that we've ever had. I no shade on Leonard Nimoy. You don't have Spock without Leonard Nimoy, but I've only seen like a few versions of Spock, and I this one, like, I don't see Ethan Peck, right? Without seeing Spock. Like, he is just so he's my Spock. I don't know. There's something about it. There's like, he's so perfect as that. So him and then the other characters, like, I just can't see, and they grow on you, and you love this ship, and you kind of feel the family aspect. I love it. I love it. This episode was weird because it was not the return to the season that I thought it was going to be. It feels not like filler, but like almost like an episode 2 thing. Like, immediately we get rid of Pike and he goes off to do his thing, and we're stuck with the crew, and we introduce a new crew member, and then we are going on an adventure to get back other crew members that we, and stuff like that. And it feels really weird. There feels like a course correction. Something happened in the making of the show I feel like we skipped an episode, because it feels like an episode 2, not really like a return to form. So I don't really know. I still am loving it. I'm loving these characters, but we're also like, we're resetting up the thing, like the love story between Spock and Nurse Chapel. We're kind of again reintroducing new characters. We're kind of giving everyone like an idea of like where they're supposed to be. We have two characters who left the crew. For one was taken away and one left, and she's off doing a mission, and we have to get her back, because she's a main, but we can't just have her gone or whatever. But it's like almost like immediately, and it feels like, well, what was the point of like having her leave in the first place if we're just gonna like wrap up that and bring her back into the fold? So there's a whole lot of weird things happening to me. It's like we're setting up the season, but I didn't feel like we like caught up with the crew in the sense, So it's really interesting, but it's still a lot of fun. Yeah.
This episode works for me. Yeah. Because I was thinking, if this isn't episode 1, what is? And I'm not sure I would want to jump directly into the trial of Una.
Is that what that's supposed to,
because that would have to be like, the reason we got rid of Pike is because the next episode is going to be about that trial.
I don't know that that's what I was suggesting, but like the Enterprise is being in maintenance, and we're not like, the captain is arguably the main character, right? Of any Star Trek, like there's always like your main 3. So it's always a trifecta, but ultimately is like an ensemble piece. And usually in the episodic, you pick one character to focus on, and it's not always the captain. I understand, but this Spock's is not. Episode. But this feels like, it is Spock's episode, and I think that's just weird because Spock is the number 2, right? And so like, and he is not the main character. Like the whole series, this whole thing. The captain is Pike, and I feel like we missed what is his kind of deal besides just. I love Pike, and I love how he's just like, always doing the right thing. He's kind of like the father everyone wants or needs,
absolutely.
And he's a smart guy, and just so warm, but I just can't place the fact like that we miss him, that we don't at least set up any sort of kind of conflict for him, or like what his deal is,
he's leaving to go help number 1 with her trial.
I get that, but like, I don't. Okay, right? Never mind. Go ahead, Shannon.
Well, you're saying that we're not like setting something up for him, and I think we are, and we're going to visit number one in the next episode. So,
but that's not like an internal, emotional, like character driven like conflict. That's number one's deal.
mm-hmm.
Like
So are you upset that the opening episode didn't center on the captain?
I feel like that because usually the captain is the driving force behind the entire season. If there's like a season arc,
Mm-hmm.
you know, and it's fine if like the rest of the crew. I don't know. Go ahead and I'm not trying to.
I know. I'm curious.
No, I said the thing that I said. I didn't want to like defend it and like elaborate on it.
Okay.
I think it's just
what it
is.
is.
Feels weird to me, and like that's what it is. It's not like a thing.
A big thing. Okay, I was just curious. Well, that's our non-spoilery opinion of the episode, and now we're just gonna hop right in. So, beat by beat, we start. It's Captain's Log, Stardate 2369.2. And before I even get started talking,
it means nothing to me.
Stardates confuse the shit out of me.
Oh, okay.
Because like there's an episode in the original series that I know happens in the year 2267, but the trial log is 3012.4. So I have no idea how star dates are like calculated or what they actually mean, because obviously it's not the year that we're in, because we are not in the year 2369. We're still in the 22s. So I never they say the star dates and I'm like, oh, cool. Still have no idea where I am in time. So that's just an interesting a little aside. And chat, if you know anything about star dates and how to calculate them, please come through for your girl. But we open, that's our star date. We have this beautiful establishing shot of the docking station at Starbase 1. And I loved the movement. You really feel like you're in space. You see all the shuttles coming in and coming out. And then you get this beautiful shot just like of the Enterprise. We hear the captain's voiceover, something that stuck with me because I think it's going to be a theme through the rest of the season is, but even from afar, I sense a tension here among the brass that I cannot pin down, the feeling that something is in the air. And we'll revisit that anxiety at the end of the episode when we talk to Admiral April, but we're already setting up that there's this big through line that the Federation knows that something is going on that the people under like the admirals don't know about yet. So just an interesting thing that we started already. So Pike is talking to his number one. They're discussing the upcoming trial. And the way that they're talking about Una's lawyer, the lawyer she's trying to get, makes me wonder if it's going to be someone that we know. Maybe not someone that you know as a new Trekkie, but in the same way that like in Picard, we get a random nod that Janeway is an admiral. It's like, that means nothing to you if you don't know who Janeway is. But if you watched Voyager, you're like, oh, Janeway's like an admiral now. So the fact that we don't say her by name and that we kind of focus on the fact that she's trying to get this lawyer, I'm interested to see who that lawyer is.
So you're on lawyer watch.
Yeah,
what it is.
I'm on lawyer watch.
Great.
So we find out, that's Pike's whole thing for this episode. He lets number one know that he's going to take 3 days, come visit her, come be by her side because it's the right thing to do and justice wins. And then he fucks off and makes Spock acting captain for the 3 days, which Spock is very anxious about. And I think that's why
nothing ever happens on the Enterprise when the captain's gone.
No,
absolutely
when
not.
the captain's away, nobody plays.
Like no one could. And what's really weird is like the Enterprise already at this point has a reputation. We've only had one season with this crew, but apparently they have such a reputation that people are aware of it. The inspectors and stuff are on everything they do is like, so like we get the inspectors are on the ship because they're like doing docking procedures, you know, like refitting things and repainting things. I, as a person who's in the Navy, when a aircraft carrier, which is the huge ship that can fit like 5,000 people, goes into not just docks. It goes into overhaul, right? And I was on a ship that was an overhaul, and usually I think this is the same thing. They really use a lot of the naval stuff with the Enterprise and the Star Trek ships. It's very apparent. It's like naval warfare. when an aircraft carrier goes into overhaul, it takes 4 years to refuel, apparently, because it's a nuclear reactor, and it takes 2 years to get the old fuel out safely, and then 2 more years to put the new fuel back in. So what I was told, I'm not exactly sure if that's true, but that's what I was told by someone. So it literally takes, it's a gas stop. So while they're getting new gas for 4 years, and then it's going to run for like another 25 or 50 years, it lasts for like a long time, right? They're going to do new things. They're going to repaint it. They're going to fix the things that are broken. They're going to like refit new things. And I'm assuming that's what the Enterprise is doing here. It's kind of like it's all refit. So there's inspectors on board, but everything they look at is like, well, this is unorthodox. Why did you change the controls? Which doesn't seem that unorthodox. Like, why wouldn't the pilot like make the controls better for them?
Right.
You know, but whatever. But like, even like Uhura. What is it?
Uhura.
Uhura.
Uhura. Well, I don't know.
Got it. Okay. Even her thing is like off kilter because like we got to shut it down. Like, well, we can't shut it down. We have a lot of hails. So the Enterprise is like the one ship that everyone knows to contact for like. So it's got a reputation, and people are not liking it. Like the people on this base or what do they call it? The station.
Starbase 1.
Yes. They're not happy to have the Enterprise there for some reason.
Right.
In essence.
So. Yeah, exactly. With Spock as acting captain, he goes to visit the doctor.
Yeah.
And he's like, bro, I'm stressed. And the doctor's like, hey, I have great news for you. Have you tried music therapy?
But he's had like 5 minutes of being acting captain and he's already stressed. Like, how long has it been?
Well, the reason he's upset is because when he was like raging out in the Gorn fight in the last season, he broke down all the barriers that Vulcans are supposed to put up to control their emotions. So he hasn't been able to build those barriers back up, and now he's acting captain.
Oh, so that's like a scientific thing, not like not like a mental, like fictional. Like when I say, like when you say, "Hey, build your walls back up," like that's not like
no. So like Vulcan children
like
go through training to like control their emotions. Yeah. So those walls came down for Spock when he had to tap into that rage to be in that battle situation, and something in him is like slightly off kilter now. So
it's literally like a second skin. So when they're talking about what's interesting about the Spock character is like, and especially in this episode, is they always talk about how he's not acting like a regular Vulcan. And part of me is like, we get it. He's half human, half Vulcan. You know, we don't need to always be saying this. Like, it's always his character of like, how does he balance the humanity versus the Vulcan in him? Those kinds of things. And so it feels kind of like calling the kettle black. You know, it's like, yeah, you're saying the thing. Everyone knows this, right? We get it. But what you're saying is that this is very specifically because normally, like something happened where now he is because of it, he's acting more human.
He's even more
than
abnormal.
Normal.
So I would argue
he's
this is
why he's not
why
acting more abnormal for Vulcan. He's acting more abnormal for
him.
Spock.
Which is why I think you like this version of Spock, because the Leonard Nimoy version is what a Vulcan is supposed to be. Sure. Extremely calculated, no emotional affection at all. So to watch Ethan Peck make the journey from like this younger, less experienced Spock, where like walls do come down. And I think that's why I like that the first episode of the season is a Spock episode, because I think one of the biggest arcs we're going to experience this season is Spock's journey to maybe getting that back under lock. Something I want to add to that I have the number. So we have the origins of Spock's Vulcan lute, which is very exciting because in the original series, you often see Spock playing the lute in his downtime. And Uhura even like plays that lute, and they have scenes where they'll like sing and play together. So when she comes in and she's like, did I hear music? It's like, oh, that's a fun little thing. But I'm
still shipping. I know this is a different I know it's not part of the lore, and I know this is what the
Say
show
it.
wants us to do, but like I prefer him in Nurse Chapel. I'm just saying.
To what?
To Uhura.
Oh yeah, so
To
Spock,
Uhura.
Spock's
sorry, that
partner
was a joke.
is T'Pring, a Vulcan, the woman we met in season 1.
I'm just saying, like, the ship for me is like, I haven't seen, I know that like him and Uhura. Oh no, that's just in the J.J. Abrams one. I
Correct.
forgot.
Yeah.
You're right.
So it
But
is
it's-
Nurse Chapel.
So wait, so it's Kirk who ends up with Uhura. But
Kirk
so
and
wait,
Uhura just have a kiss, and it's not because they
do
have any
Spock and
affection for
Uhura,
each
so
other.
you just mentioned though, but like, do Spock and Uhura never,
They're friends.
they're friends the whole
Yeah.
time? They never have a
No.
relationship? Oh, okay, that's interesting.
His
I'm
little-
mixing up my lore
Yeah,
in
it's
my
okay.
timeline.
His little connection is to Nurse Chapel.
Oh, the whole time?
In the
Great.
original series,
Then we're in a
they
good spot.
do have like a secret, like there's like an energy, there's an undercurrent there.
Oh, awesome.
And yeah, I definitely think, exploring this is going to set up why what happens.
Man, they really screwed me up with that J.J. Abrams
No,
one
it's okay.
with Zendaya and...
It's not Zendaya, it's Zoe
Oh my
Saldana.
God, what is wrong with me?
He's killing it, guys.
I
All right.
am forgetting all the names.
It's okay. So speaking of Nurse Chapel walks in while
Yes.
Spock is talking about the fact that he's
And
having
his heart
anxiety.
rate
And his
goes
heart
up
rate increases.
just a little bit because they
Just a
just
little
happen to
bit.
be tracking it at that moment.
So something very interesting that she mentions is that...
Hold on.
Go ahead.
The fact that, because he's like, oh yeah, we study music for the mathematical properties, and his heart rate does actually fucking go down whenever he plays the lute. So like, what person, I know I'm just saying the thing that's like, what person does trigonometry and is like, oh yes, a calming effect. I don't trust that person.
So really funny that you say that because there's a deleted scene in season 3 of the original series
Sure.
where Spock mentions that he took second place in the all Vulcan music competition and only lost out to his father who placed first. So this man has had music in his life ever since he was a child, canonically, which I think is super cute.
But yes, music in his life, but does that just mean he's good at math is what I'm saying?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
Not a good musician.
It's like
just
I'm really good at
math.
geometry and I can see the way that like music takes shape and I'm doing like a squared plus b squared equals c squared
I
while I'm
hate it.
strumming on this
I
lute.
hate it. I would never. I as much as I like people just throw that out there and they love to like Vulcans. This is the kind of thing where like I would be like Kirk. Like you're reducing music to math and I hate it.
Oh
like,
my
I
God.
can't do it.
No, I love
like
it.
you need to chill out, bro.
You need to pump the brakes.
Vulcan bro. Go ahead.
So yeah, Nurse Chapel walks in and her and M'Benga have a little discussion where she mentions kind of offhand
Sure.
that she wants to pursue her interest in an archaeological fellowship for 2 months on Vulcan. Now, again, it's just kind of in passing where he's like, oh no, are we going to lose you? And she's like, you're not going to get rid of me that easily. But I have some fun information for you, Mattias. Are you ready?
But okay, go ahead.
Well, hold on. What were you going to say?
It's just the fact that again we're setting up characters leaving. Like the season clearly is about breaking up the crew.
And coming back together stronger. Yes. Okay. So, Nurse Chapel.
Sure.
She mentions the archaeological interest. That's totally fine.
Yeah.
In the original series, there's an episode called What Little Girls Are Made Of. And in that episode, we find out that her ex-fiance, Roger Corby, is a renowned expert in that field in the Federation. So far that people study his writings in Starfleet Academy. So it's then discovered that while she's training, she studies under Roger and they fall in love and get engaged. So if that's setting up why her and Spock don't work out, which we know can't happen because we see the original series where Spock is in a relationship with T'Pring, a Vulcan woman, that is apparently what happens. And in Strange New Worlds, she's an exchange student, but the reason she officially joined Starfleet in Star Trek canon is because her fiance goes missing while he's on an expedition. And it's her hope that if she joins Starfleet, she'll be sent on a mission and like find him in deep space.
So that's already happened.
In the original series, like 10 years from now, yes.
Okay, so, but at this time, she doesn't have a fiance.
At this time, she has not met him yet.
So you're assuming she's going to meet him at this Vulcan
I
thing.
don't know, because I don't know where she originally studied her like first bout of archaeological medicine.
Sure.
So maybe not.
But you just said the reason she joined Starfleet, and she is in Starfleet.
No, right now she's on an exchange program.
Oh.
So she's not an official Starfleet cadet.
Okay.
That's why she's like in her she's not in Starfleet uniform, because she's not Starfleet.
Why do y'all want to hurt me?
So I think it would be really exciting if we get to actually meet Roger where he is in this point in the universe, because we don't really meet him. We only see him when we find out that he's been living as like an android for the past 5 years.
Can I just say that as much as we love Star Trek, and I'm going to talk about this a lot, the creativity in this series is just so annoying to me. The names are Roger, Chris,
Kirby. Yeah.
Kirk.
Yeah.
They're very the whitest kids you know. There are names that are not, but
Yeah.
Who cares about Roger, Shannon?
That honestly is very important commentary that we can touch on. I'm going to want to talk about like Klingon lore in a little bit too. And we should definitely talk about that.
For sure.
And the Vulcan thing you mentioned last night. But
Yes.
when we get closer to...
I'm ready.
Okay. I'm also ready.
I had a conversation with Griffin today, and we are ready.
I'll fight Griffin too. I don't give a shit.
Go ahead.
Okay, great. So that's Nurse Chapel and her possible 2-month fellowship. So from there, you mentioned very confidently, we get that nice bridge shot. We see Starfleet coming in and doing these checks on the Enterprise and seeing that, we're our own family. We have our own quirky way of doing things. And that's when we find out that there's...
A little forced, to be honest. A little forced. It's like, okay, got it.
We find out that there's a distress signal from La'an from Kajitar 4, which is in Klingon space.
Well, she wasn't in distress. I will.
She
note.
was not in distress. No.
It almost seemed like she accidentally sent it. I'm not exactly sure. When we actually got the scene of her talking to them, was it a false signal?
No, because we'll get to that, but it's because she realizes that there's something going on. Klingon. So in the timeline of where we are, Discovery, Star Trek Discovery season 2 just ended, which means the Klingon War just ended.
Oh wait, so something was happening off screen that I didn't know about.
So the Klingon War just ended, and La'an on this planet is realizing that Klingons are buying into Federation property. Hold on, Klingons don't like the Federation and don't like Federation tech. So it's weird to her that Klingons are engaging with Federation technology when they are so vocal and adamant against it. And that's what dings her. And she's like, something is off here. If these people are looking for so many Federation weapons, what's going on?
But you're telling me I had to watch a whole other season of something else to get this?
No.
Okay, good. Because I didn't.
Yeah, no, it's okay.
I have no idea.
No, well, they say that the Klingon War just ended.
I get it. Wait. Was the Klingon War going on last season? I thought there was like a truce, like a line you don't cross. Am I misremembering that?
No, you're remembering correctly.
So
that's what I mean. Like, it's fresh. There are treaties, there are truces. We're not fighting anymore, but it's not like the war's been over for 10 years. It's like a recent treaty.
I don't know. Anyway, she got the distress signal.
So we got the distress signal.
Oh, it's a good thing that Uhura didn't turn off the thing.
Absolutely. Absolutely. This is why, because when she says we get a lot of calls and she goes, see, that's the call that comes in.
I get it. But
I love it.
But also as someone who's like, it's not like, here's the thing. I'm kind of just playing devil's advocate here.
I know. I hate it.
Who made the Enterprise like the main character? You know what I'm saying? Like who said like there's a whole station here with other people that are good at their job, but then we make it that like no, only the Enterprise is good at their job and only this crew is like is the one at hand
Yeah.
of doing things. Like, can you be any more antagonistic
Well,
to the...
La'an would call the Enterprise because that's her ship.
That makes sense.
And I also-
and if you're telling me that Uhura was keeping that line open just for her, I would believe it. But it is also a little bit like backhanded to like the rest of Starfleet. Like, oh, we don't give a shit about
Well,
me.
they also know, like, we call Pike a Boy Scout on like multiple occasions, and it's because he's the captain that you can call, and even if it's not like perfectly Federation, it's like you have someone that's always going to be in your corner in Pike and in his crew.
Which is why I like Pike, because I've been called a Boy Scout.
So yeah, well, I think that's why people like Pike so much and do identify with him, because of that like Boy Scout energy. But yeah, as proper Federation would have it, they take this information directly to their overseeing Admiral April, and he's like, no, you're not going to do that shit. And Spock's like, bro, we are absolutely going to do that shit. He runs it by the crew, and the whole crew fucking rallies.
Because the episode can't happen without it. You know, like, we know where this is going. So I kind of love that they just like, yeah, we're down. Because it's like, let's not beat around the bush here. Like, they're taking the Enterprise and they're going.
This also sets up something that I want to talk about at the end of the episode. But Spock stealing a ship is something that will come up again in a very important way in the original series. So I do really like that already we're seeing this, like, Spock is driven by loyalty. And if he feels loyal to a crew member, it doesn't matter. Like, rules, logic don't matter to him. His human side kicks in, and he is there for the people that he cares about.
Again, this is something where at first I was like, this seems like a little bit not Spock, you know? But then you're telling me that, again, he's more human because of what happened last season, which again is just weird. Like, I wouldn't catch that. So like, I guess like, so that's the whole point. Like, he's not being Spock, but I don't know that that's very clear, just to be, you know, to clarify.
He's emotionally compromised because of what has already happened to him. And as he becomes like more experienced, he'll get a lock on his emotions.
But I do
again.
love his like, I thought it would be obvious. We're stealing the ship. Like,
just like, all right, here we go.
It's like, what are you suggesting? What do you think he's suggesting?
We're gonna steal a fucking ship. I was like, let's go.
Okay. What do you think? First off, are we supposed to know this engineer?
No.
This actress? Has she been a part of?
No. She hasn't been in Star Trek. The reason you know her probably is from Taxi or The Princess Bride or like something.
She's clearly like an actress who's been around for a while, but like it seemed like anytime we have like an older actress or whatever, that were part of Star Trek in the past is what I assume.
So she has no connection to Star Trek, and her species is a new species for Strange New Worlds.
Oh, so that's not a thing?
Mm-mm. She's brand new.
Oh, that's cool.
Which is very interesting and exactly what we're about next.
She said almost immortal.
So, where we meet...
living forever, not immortal.
Yeah,
but
we meet Pelia on the bridge. She immediately calls Spock out on his shit. She's like, I know you're fucking around with me. I've been alive for like ever.
This is also why I assumed that we were supposed to know her, like in some way. It felt like one of those like cameos or whatever. And I was like, who is this person and why do we like care about her? But like, I feel like I'm gonna grow to love her too. So.
Absolutely. So we know that she's lanthanite. She is, again, new to the Star Trek universe. This is not a species that has ever been seen in canon so far. So we know that she's a humanoid. She's been alive for hundreds of years. She doesn't have any defining
thousands, maybe.
Yeah. She doesn't have any defining like alien characteristics that would tip off that she's not human, which circles back to her discussion of she knows Spock's mother, Amanda Grayson, who is the first person that she revealed herself to.
And how long do Vulcans live?
A while, but not as long as
I understand, but
will.
they still like, they're like elven in like 900 years maybe or something like that. Or like, what's the...
Chat, you want to Google that for me? What's the typical like lifespan of a Vulcan? Because I don't know off the top of my head, but I do know it's longer than human.
Again, it's like when you say like, oh, he knows her mother. Well, he knows her mother from like 30 years ago, or knows his mother from like 400 years ago. Like, that's a difference, you know? Like,
well, realistically, I don't think Spock is 400 years old, so it would
how
just
old
be...
do you think Spock is?
Maybe like 399 years old.
Jeez.
No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so she's the new engineer, and that's literally all we know about her. She's kind of giving me gentle, like a mix of Guinan and Q.
Yeah, no, I was picking up on that as well.
From Next Generation.
I'm just kidding.
I know. I'm going to explain it to you.
Things.
So Whoopi Gold. Okay, what does that say?
He's as old as 220 as Vulcans.
Perfect.
Like, just period. Like Vulcans. I can live up to as old as 220.
Okay. Great. 220. Well, there we go.
So not that long compared to a Lanthanite.
Yes, compared to her, not very long, but compared to humans, I'm sure a little longer.
2 human lifetimes.
2 human lifetimes.
Approximately.
Poor Spock. So yeah, this character is kind of giving me Guinan, Guinan and Q energy. Guinan is another like humanoid alien that comes in and is always just like offering advice, offering help. Is kind of the like cool character that you go to, that Picard specifically would go to when he like needed assistance or needed, you know, an ear to bounce ideas off of. And then Q is this like chaos energy antagonist friend somehow, who is this like godlike entity who lives forever and ever and ever and ever. So I feel like this woman with her like kind of weird chaos energy, but she's also weirdly grounded at the same time. I think she's going to be a very interesting, playful, and curious role for the next 9 episodes.
I think, well, we do have a very specific, I saw one trailer and I avoided others because of spoilers, but we do see that they spend some time on Earth, right? And they do mention that these Lanthanites have been able to live in secret on Earth for quite a while, which is, to me, is going to probably explain offhandedly like lore for like vampires or angels or any sort of long living thing that we've ever had in like legend or myth like on Earth. Is probably going to be explained by like this is like more of like an angelic kind of thing, or where the myth came from, you know, in this world is what I'm assuming is we're eventually going to get to. Yeah. So I don't know, or gods, demigods, you know, the Greek gods. I don't know how long, if they've been living there for that long. Super interesting. Quick question. Yeah. I know that obviously, like, I don't know what to call it. Androids are a thing because Data is an android, right? When do they come along? Because I haven't seen any in Strange New Worlds or the J.J. Abrams or any of this. So we meet Data in Next Gen. Right. Which is, if I look at my timeline, like almost 100 years after the original series. So we're assuming that they haven't been created yet? There's no androids either? So, okay. La'an has the Noonien Sin last name, which is like Khan's last name, but also connected to the scientist that makes Data and his brother Lore, who are both androids. So this might be percolating the start of like where that line is, but I don't think we would be visiting androids in this time yet. Yeah, sure. I'm just, when we're talking about like, you know, beings that live hundreds of years and like almost immortal or like godlike, you know, and things like androids usually fall into the equation. And so I guess I was just wondering when they start and how long they've been around as well. Well, I believe, I could be crazy, but I think Data is the first like of his kind. Data is the one that like looks humanoid, acts humanoid, like but we haven't seen emotion. So in that case, we haven't even seen like prototypes yet. Yeah, we haven't seen robots or anything. Like there isn't a whole lot of that, unlike Star Wars, which are all about droids and robots. Interesting. Yeah. So chat did correct us. Like we know that they live at least 220 years, but they could live longer. So we just don't have like a direct confirmation. So Vulcans could be several hundred, probably. So yeah, it's a lot. You know, humans. It's, to me, it's like fantasy rules. We got elves. Everyone lives longer than humans. So it's whatever. We suck. Well, speaking of Vulcans, we get, I think, a moment that brought you joy, which is Spock deciding what his engage is. The moment worked much better in the trailer. than it did here for some reason.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would like the ship to go is a great,
Now.
perfect Spock. Like, what else is he going to say? Because whenever she asked a question in the trailer, I'm like, yeah. What is his thing? What's it going to be? And I was like, that is perfect.
It is perfect.
That is absolutely perfect. Again, for some reason, I don't know what was going on. I think our sound mix was off. I don't know what's happening. Like, it didn't feel right, you know? And so something's happening with the sound. Even when he was playing the lute, like I could barely hear the music that the caption said.
Yeah.
So I just feel like the moment didn't hit me the way that I thought it would. But yeah, I still love it.
So cute. So they're on their way. We smash into what La'an is doing. So she's playing a drinking game.
No time. They're like wasting no time.
No.
Like getting, because I'm saying like not only do we smash cut to her, but like we don't see where the crew left the ship or anything like that. By the time we see the rest of the crew, like they just go straight to talking to her. Like they're there, they've been there, you know?
Yeah.
So I was like, it's really weird how we're just kind of like getting straight to the point.
We're just getting right in there.
So yeah.
But yeah, so she's playing a drinking game with Kardok, drinking blood wine, which is hilarious to me because fucking
you don't drink blood wine in your
Klingon blood wine. Well, here, let me drop some knowledge on you. So
okay.
actually, and I do want to talk about Klingons. So this is the perfect time to do this. We see Klingons for the first time in Strange New Worlds, which is awesome. So
this isn't, I know it's not the first time period, but like in your timeline of all the other shows.
No.
We have seen them in the other shows in the previous timeline.
Yeah. So, the way the Klingons look in Strange New World is most in line with what most people would probably think of when you think of Klingon with the head ridges.
Yeah, because there is a very famous Klingon part of the Enterprise crew, Picard's crew, right?
Worf.
Yeah, so that's the only Klingon I know.
Okay. He's a great Klingon to know.
I'm just saying, like I'm assuming is
that's
most
imagery.
people's experience, and that's the imagery we're getting. That's the same imagery.
Yes.
Yeah.
So
I didn't know there was a different one.
It matches Next Generation, Deep Space Nine, and Voyager all use that style of Klingon with the prominent head ridges.
Sure.
We have Worf, his son Alexander, and then on a different ship, Deep Space Nine, we have B'Elanna Torres, who's half human, half Klingon, and even she has like a prominent forehead with head ridges. In Discovery, the Klingons look very different, even down to their like coloring. There's like blues and purples involved. Their head ridges are different. And in the original series, they are flat-headed. So
because they didn't know what Klingons were at the time. They were just kind of making stuff up in the 60s.
This ties into the haircut thing you want to talk about, but don't derail me yet. I think the real reason that the original series had flat-headed Klingons is because they were on a shoestring budget and didn't know where they were going with it.
When you say flat-headed, what is that? I've
No
never seen
ridges.
this. But like, they're still, so they just look normal?
Yes.
They just look like normal humans?
Mm-hmm. And the lore behind that, which is something I want to talk about, is I think Star Trek does a really good job at things that the original series had to do out of necessity, right? Maybe they didn't have a budget for special effects makeup for all the Klingons, so they made them flat-headed. In Enterprise in the 2000s, they tried to retcon that. So the Klingons in Enterprise had flat foreheads too, and the idea was that the Klingons are doing genetic modification to look more like humans so they can infiltrate Earth and the Federation. And this is what happens right before the Klingon Federation War. So that's their way of trying to infiltrate. And that's why some Klingons have forehead ridges and some don't in canon. When the reality is they just didn't have it in the original series because they didn't have the makeup to do it. But I like where that's going because when we meet Worf, he's the next Klingon we see after the original series. So we go from having flat-headed Klingons to all of a sudden we have this like beautiful, insane man. And someone asks him in an episode, they go like back to, I think it's called Trials and Tribulations. They go back to Kirk's timeline to save the day or some shit. And someone clocks Worf and they're like, oh, you don't look like the other Klingons we know. And he's like, we don't discuss it with outsiders. So it was something that was never retconned until Enterprise, which wasn't until the 2000s.
And how many shows were in between the original series but did those shows come out before?
So 3 series aired before Enterprise retconned why the original series would have flathead, but all the other series had ridges.
Right. So, but Enterprise wasn't the first series to show the ridges. They were
No, the first
Next
show
Generation?
was Next Gen.
But then, and Next Gen came right after the original series.
Mhm.
Okay.
That was the next Star Trek to like come out.
Okay. And then that introduced Worf.
Mhm.
Okay, great. Then yes, okay.
Yeah.
I don't. But Enterprise didn't explain it,
So Enterprise did
Okay.
explain it.
okay.
That's why. So we had flat-headed.
This is just okay.
So we had flat-headed Klingons in Enterprise. So the reason I was so excited when we watched the trailer and I saw that we were getting Klingons is because even when Discovery came out, people were losing their shit about what the Klingons looked like. Because it's like the original series had weird Klingons, Enterprise had weird Klingons, now Discovery has weird Klingons.
Shannon, they're telling me that Enterprise came out is a prequel to the original series.
It is.
But you told me, okay, never mind.
Yeah. So the timeline is like Enterprise, Strange New Worlds, the original series. But in terms of when they premiered in your and I's timeline, Enterprise came out in the 2000s. So it was retconned after all these series had been showing Klingons with forehead ridges.
But Enterprise is also the bad one.
I
That's what you
like
told me.
Enterprise with Archer.
That's what you told me, though. That's the bad one.
It's the one that most people don't like. But I really liked Enterprise. I think they biffed it like right at the end. They killed off some characters. And I think it's because they got canceled and they had to wrap it up really fast. But I loved the characters on Enterprise.
Okay, just for anyone here, this is going to be a huge lore dump episode. And then maybe the next few weeks we'll actually talk about some internal struggles. But like this is a,
Oh yeah,
there's a whole
today
lot
is
going
not
on.
about internal struggle quite yet until we
This
get to
is-
the end.
This is not about the codependent part of our content. This is about what are we, who are you?
Yeah, this is about setting the universe stage, and then we'll dive into
We're
more.
not codependent yet. We're just getting to know each other.
Yeah.
Okay.
So what
We
you
meet
originally
Klingons.
asked me
Here's
was
what I know about. Here's what I'm getting from what this show is telling me
Mm-hmm.
about Klingons. Warring class, very much all about strength and honor and war and like who you like. You don't matter unless you can be strong, kind of race. You know, like it doesn't even matter how smart you are or whatever. It's like, can you beat me in a knife fight or whatever? Like there's a whole bunch of
batholith.
dick measuring and well, I don't know if they have dicks. I'm sorry. I don't know if I can say dick on a podcast, but I said it. It's a whole lot of private part measuring and machismo almost. You know,
I would say it's about
I
like
wouldn't say-
pride
it's
and
not even
honor.
like, yeah, it's
but
not like
yeah.
machismo, but you know, it's very there's a physicalness to it.
And they're all clan based too.
Yeah.
So honor really does play into that of like if there are warring clans and there is Klingon lore of like why they are like a battle race essentially.
I will argue that when I think like honor bound, and this is kind of racist as an Asian, half Asian, I'm still going to say it, that like honor comes up a lot in Japanese culture and Asian cultures and like how you represent honor. And it's not always like strength based or kind of violence based, right? Whereas this is very specifically a violence forward race, you know? It doesn't surprise me you are possibly going to be at war with the Klingons because it seems like they want to be at war at all times.
They're like the Aries of
It's like, what if they're not at war, then what the fuck are they doing, basically? Is what I'm getting from the Klingons.
They are very fiery and they're quick again. Like if they think you've dishonored them in any sort of way, they're ready to fucking throw down.
Sure.
So yeah, they are quick to draw the sword. But they're also very quick to like it comes from defense and love and like clan unity of like there are some people that are better fighters than others.
Yeah.
And I will I will fight for my honor and to protect my family and the people in my clan that can't fight or maybe like aren't able to do certain things. But yeah, 100%. Super fiery. They've got really bad tempers, so
Yeah.
they're also big drinkers.
All the things that kind of come with that, which is maybe not so smart, maybe not so clever. Here's the thing. What are you doing? You're listening to the podcast as I'm talking.
Yeah.
So as much as they are about war and battle, jumping a little bit ahead, they really suck at that when two people, doctors, are able to basically take out an entire ship of them.
Well, what I'm very interested
seem like
in
they're very good at that
understanding
either.
is what did they take that made them able to take on that many Klingons?
Okay, but like, are the Klingons supposed to be easy to handle?
No.
Like, they're not supposed to be like
They're
fodder. Okay, that's what's interesting, because to me, it seems like they're not that much of a threat. They're just dumb, kind of violent beings,
I think that's how we were like originally introduced to them in the
Yeah.
original series. But then again, you have like, we brought Worf in to show that this race of people are not just violent, pig-headed, like unintelligent people.
I mean,
And
you
they
would assume.
are insane fighters.
Yeah, I mean, if there's been like how long of a truce, like years, hundreds?
No, I'm like a couple
shorter?
years.
It's only been a couple of years of a truce.
So that's what I'm saying, because Discovery, if it's 2256, Strange New Worlds is 2258. So if the Klingon War just ended, it's maybe been a year.
How long was the Klingon War?
Like 2 years.
And what were they before that? Just not around. But this is like a huge deal.
Mm-hmm.
Like breaking the line, right?
Mm-hmm.
This is, and when it's that huge, you're talking about like half of known population, right? Like this is not just some off planet, like whatever. Like they have to have significant numbers. And again, possibly going into the known population of the entire whatever universe, galaxy, I don't know what we're in.
The Delta Quadrant.
Even the unknown stuff. Like if it is that significant that they don't want to break the truce, you would think that they are a significant threat and that there's a lot of them.
Yes.
At least half the population. Like because otherwise they wouldn't be that big, but then they're not very good at starting a war, is what I'm saying. So I don't know. So I would assume that they are smart. I'm glad that they represent them later on, but to me, I'm not getting the impression. And it's really weird that like this just happened 2 years ago and they're just so bad at this,
What do you like, bad in what capacity? Is it because the nurse and the doctor can get through them so easily?
Their plan revolved around getting this Enterprise ship and getting it to like blow up one of their other ships. And but like it seems like only like a small faction of them are part of that crew. Like, but it seems like they all want to be at war. I have no idea what the fuck is going on. So is there like an internal civil war going on here?
And La'an, so continuing on in our story,
yes.
After we see La'an win that drinking game, she says she wants to set up a meeting with Greynax. Boom. Surprisingly, the Enterprise crew is already there, even though, yes, exactly what you said. It's like, where was any of the travel or them getting off the ship? It's like, hey, we're in the country yard, just come over.
Yeah.
But in when she's cluing them in and also the audience, she says there's a small group on planet that want to restart the Klingon Federation war because peace is not good for profit. So there are people on planet that were profiting from war, from selling arms.
As always.
And they're the group that's buying Federation weapons and trying to get this off ship. So Klingons and humans, like, especially the Federation, like, never get along.
But it sounds to me that the Klingons wouldn't be opposed to war,
But they wouldn't, they wouldn't necessarily mind it, but like they're happy to honor the truce because it came across in an honorable way.
Yeah.
The Federation came across as honorable opponents. A truce was like they connected on it, so they're fine with it.
I just feel like there are so many better ways to start a war. Like I understand we're also writing this from a like different perspective. Like there's always like the spark of war that happens because someone crossed the line or whatever. But if there's like a faction, I was like, maybe even politically would be even a smarter way to like get people on your side. We see how that is, and today's, I feel like we're close to a civil war ourselves, you know, because of like the bullshit, because it's happening in media and stuff. And so it's really interesting to me that's like it all hinged on this one thing, which is like, oh well, now that's over, so now we can't start a war.
Well,
so
it's
like,
true,
what else?
because if the Federation, if their plan worked, if that Federation ship shot at the Klingon ship, that would mean that the honor was broken and the Klingons would all just pop off.
Yeah.
Because if you can't honor the treaty, you don't like value our culture.
Yeah, but if I'm a Klingon trying to start a war, I'm not putting all my eggs in that one basket, and I'm hopefully like thinking ahead. If I'm a smart Klingon, I don't know, I might not be smart, but if I'm a smart Klingon, I'm thinking ahead. Once this war starts, who is the face behind that war, and do I want to be, you know, who's leading this whole charge, right? And like, why are they not thinking 10 steps ahead of like, not only do I need to start this war, but I need to like gain some sort of political power or some sort of like face so that I can keep it going, because I don't profit off of it unless I like maintain a whole bunch of things like moving forward and like next step after next step. You know what I'm saying? And it doesn't feel like it was really that thought out. It doesn't feel like there's like a person behind that. It doesn't feel like there's I'm kind of nitpicking here. It's just I'm trying to understand lore and all those kind of things. I know eventually a war is going to start or not start. That's fine. But it, to me, if you're representing the Klingons as a very capable war mongering kind of race, the fact that they like by the end of the episode it's like, okay, war, like a huge deal, is just forget about it. Like we solved that kind of deal.
Well, don't forget that only a small fraction of people are actively seeking war. So
what are the rest of Klingons doing? They're not
just trying to like rebuild their society,
because they're not joining the Federation.
No, they're not.
What's going on with their society?
They just went through a war.
Maybe it's too much. Okay, fine.
But in theory, it's like, you know, if a truce is broken, that war is going to break out again. You don't have to have any sort of power. You just have to light the match and throw it into the garbage heap to have it.
I think I'm just
set fire.
I think I'm just criticizing the writers.
Sure.
More than anything else, because I like the Klingons. Like I like their kind of, you know, we love that kind of way of life or whatever, you know. And to me, it just doesn't feel like you're representing them in the best light, basically. You know,
well,
if this is my introduction to Klingons, if I have no other, and I don't, if I have no other idea who the Klingons are, I'm like, these guys are stupid, is basically what I'm saying.
They feel like stormtroopers.
Yeah, they're
like
not,
how they're like paper people.
Yeah, it's like, okay, like they're a non-entity. Like I don't have to worry about them. And so that's my criticism of it, you know?
And so continuing to speak about the Klingons, we have a quick moment with the Doctor and Nurse Chapel where we realize that they served in the war on the moon of Jagal. And there's a Klingon that comes in and he's like, if you would have served on that fucking moon, you would be dead right now. And I feel like that's a little hint to just how like violent and atrocious the like Klingon space was. And for me, because I like know what Klingons are, and the fact that the Doctor is like the air was like thick with blood. It was literally raining blood. That's how much violence was around. Makes me wonder again, what they injected into them. Nurse Chapel says that, do you always carry yours around? It's like, what did they go through on that moon together?
It feels like a strength serum, because there's a moment where it's wearing off and she punches one of the Klingons. And I don't know about like Klingon anatomy, but it seems like their skin is tougher. I don't know if that's true, but it seems like they are like much more tough and battle hardened. And like actually physically stronger, kind of like a Vulcan is physically stronger than a human. And so when she punches him, like she recoils and like shakes her fist. But before then, she was having no problem.
Right.
So it feels like there's something going on that's like making them stronger and able to like take more pain and things like that. So curious, yeah.
But
That's
it's
what I see.
also, I'm with you, it's also figuring out how two humans can be injected with something that makes them such competent fighters, because the same way that Vulcans like brain train from a young age, like Klingons fight from a young age. So fighting and like technique and battle planning should be part of your vernacular. So the fact that these two people came in and just like beat the fuck up out of everybody, I'm hoping isn't just like, oh, we're doing this just to show like, oh, they had to get through all these people. And I'm hoping it somehow all ties together with like the trauma that they experienced on the moon, that maybe they learned something, or that the serum does something. I don't know if it like slows down or like amps up their reaction time so they can react quicker. And that's why they seem like better fighters, because we do get that slow-mo shot of the like vial dropping.
That's what I thought it was. There's a movie called Judge Dredd, or maybe it's just called Dredd, with Carl Urban, the reboot. And they have a drug called slow-mo, and some really good slow motion scenes where like when you take it, it kind of like everything moves in like literally high frame rate, like slow motion, and it affects how you're able to like engage with the rest of the world and like helps you out in battle. So that's what it felt like, was like kind of like combining that drug, but then it didn't, but then it just turned into like a generic, like we just got to get through these people. It almost felt to me like, and I don't know, I'm not blaming it on the actors, but it almost felt like, hey, the actors want to feel badass too. They're just doctors. Maybe. But like, let's give us like a little bit of a little fight scene, because these are the two characters that are least likely to get in a fight, you know, on the ground, as it were, unless they're there to like help save someone, you know? And so it felt like giving them a moment. But again, it's just like, you're not showcasing Klingons as an actual viable threat if like this one rogue group of Enterprise like crew, like not only the two doctors, but like the rest of the crew finds out the plan and like nips in the bud. It wasn't a very good plan then to begin with. Like you just discovered this 10 minutes ago. And then like dispatched of it. I was like, oh, that was just another mission. You know, it doesn't make them out to be a viable threat. Physically, or I guess mentally, you know, or war tactically. And I'm just a little bit disappointed, because I want to like the Klingons, or like feel that they're like a significant, like that war actually means anything. I don't know. Well, to me now it's more like, well, we beat you once, so like it's easy, we're gonna beat you again. Like it doesn't make any sense. Like why, you know? So I don't know. I don't understand it. Personally.
No, it's okay. All right. So we have a little chunk of time. This is like, I'm just going to fast go through it because nothing much, in my opinion, happens. La'an meets with the arms buyers. She immediately pieces together that they're buying tech because they're going to launch this attack.
It doesn't matter, because it's just about getting her back to the crew. You know?
And she lets the doctor and nurse discover there's a Federation ship, and then they figure out what's going on too. So everybody kind of knows.
I thought the doctor was going to die.
Even though you know she's in the original series.
No, not Chapel. The
other
doctor,
one. Sorry.
Yeah, we kept like hyping him up. You giving him like these emotional things like, oh, you were in the war. Like you really were part of it. And like, you sure you want to do this one last time? And then like also... and he's like, no, I'm not sure, but I leave me on their trust. Great line. I love that. I love like a character just being fucking honest. When she's like, you want, like, do you think we should do this? And he's like, no, I'm not stupid. Like, I just like, what else are we going to do? You know? And then like, they don't find a suit and like, we have to go, we're maybe only survive for like a minute. I thought he was going to like somehow help her survive at the cost of his life. And I'm like, man, first episode, kill a major character, someone that we learned to love, and we had such emotional connection. He didn't die, which almost disappoints me. Because I'm I thought he was going to. And I was like ready to be emotionally devastated. And at the same time, not wanting to be emotionally devastated. So I don't know how to feel right now.
That's honestly a completely fair assessment. When they were like, there's no helmet, there's no anything, we're gonna shoot ourselves out of these airlocks. And I drink any Star Trek Kool-Aid because I know what I'm watching. I know it's an episodic, and of course during every episode, like the good guy wins. That's almost kind of part of the fun
Like,
of
I get it. They solve the issue. It's like, whatever. That's what I love about this series is like every episode ends up being like the standalone kind of thing. And we have new discussions about like the situations that they put themselves in. Because not only are they like discovering new things and we're getting a different arc, we are asking questions about, I guess, humanity, right?
Yeah.
And like, what would you do in this kind of like situation? What does this mean for you if you were this kind of being or like in this kind of culture or whatever? Super interesting stuff, you know?
And speaking of struggling with what you would do in that situation, spending time with Spock on board the Enterprise when he realizes that he has to destroy the ship that the doctor and the nurse are on.
That was a good fun moment. I feel like
Trauma.
we didn't have that much time with Spock. Like, you have to have watched the first season. I wish we had rewatched it because we haven't. That's the thing to me is we jump right into these things and we didn't have any time to really catch us back up with these characters because it's been however long, like a year and a half.
Yeah.
That maybe just a year, but like I feel like I'm just getting to remember who these characters are and what the situation is. I don't remember every fucking story beat. And then we're jumping right into it. And I wish we had more time with Spock because that was like such a good moment for him to like hold off, like wait for my signal. And then to like finally do it and to think that you're killing two of your own was so great. And it kind of sucks that it's like undercut by the fact that we know as an audience that like that's not going to happen, which is again why I thought the doctor was going to die, because like I don't know what the show wants to be. Does it want to be like happy, you know, like always like wrap things up in a bow, you know, or does it like actually want to represent like real stakes, you know? And so it's a struggle with me because I think it's such a great moment, but it's undercut and it doesn't completely land because like, you know, that they're going to be fine at the end, you know? So I don't know.
Knowing that the person that you are like fighting feelings for too with Spock, because he's already going through this like mental and emotional breakdown of he lost the walls during the Gorn battle in season 1. So he's feeling like lost and adrift because everything he knows about like his Vulcan heritage that he worked so hard as a child to like drape around himself was split open. And now he definitely can't control the feelings he has for Nurse Chapel because what the fuck, I could barely control them when my walls were up. And now you're acting captain during all of this and you have to make that decision. You have to know that they sent you that signal and it's on your head and it's everything of like, I never told her. It's everything left unsaid. It's all the things that will go unsaid. And the doctor's very important too, but like, obviously, Nurse Chapel being on that ship is like a dual layer of not only is Kirk, I'm sorry, I keep saying Kirk, not only is Spock so loyal to the crew that he's a part of, there's also that undercutting layer of like, and I'm like falling in love, which is foreign and terrifying.
I think it's like, because I actually wasn't thinking about the Chapel and Spock connection there when I was thinking about, it's two crew members to me, you know? And I wish that, again, there is a possibility that they could really have honed in on like even the I forget people's names, but the pilot and the gunner, you know, could have been like
Ortega.
Why are we like not firing? Like, I need to fire now. Like, this is like the moment, like all those kind of things. Like, what is holding you back? And like the fact that like the way that they're shooting this, the way it's coming across is like he has a plan. He has a decision to make. It's not so much of a struggle. It doesn't feel human. It feels logical. And I wish it was more of a human side of him where it's like, I can't let this person that I'm so close to die. And we're not really getting that like push-pull kind of thing. We're not getting that like, this is a bad decision that he's making. You know, we're just always kind of like on his side. We're always understanding like, no, he's going to do it when he does it at the right moment. And again, I think it's just the way it's shot and the way that it's represented. We can still draw those conclusions that you're saying, but it's just, to me, in the moment, wasn't as effective as I feel like it could have been. And maybe that's just because we didn't have as much time to really establish those things. And
and
there's a lot we have to read into. I don't know.
for me, watching Spock, knowing that he's so usually emotionally composed, I think Ethan Peck is doing a great job at balancing. Are you good?
I'm reading a.
Oh, okay. I was like, what are you staring at?
M'Benga was in the original series. You didn't tell me that. I thought he wasn't. Dr. M'Benga? I thought it was just Chapel. I thought he was gone.
Well, I know Dr. McCoy is in it. I didn't realize they had another doctor. But that's cool.
Maybe he shows up in like a small.
Yeah, chat, clarify that for me. And she will.
Because we assumed that like he was not part of. That's why I assumed.
I just didn't remember him because I know Dr. McCoy is the primary doctor and Nurse Chapel assists him.
Is it Hank McCoy? No, that's X-Men. Bones, right? Mm-hmm. Bones. Carl Urban is the best. Bones to me.
That's really funny.
He's great.
But I think Ethan Peck is doing a really good job at showing like trying to control of lack of emotion, of like trying not to let things affect you. And then like you just see it in his eyes. His eyes start to water. And it's like this emotion is bubbling up in him and he's like, do not give into this. But his silence and his inactivity is giving away the turmoil that's happening inside him. And like just as his eyes start to water and he's like, fuck it, like shoot it. And I also really like there's such a respect in the hierarchy of the Enterprise, which I don't always like and sometimes feels like I don't always like hierarchy. It's like, oh, the one person in charge is the only person in charge. But the respect there and the trust to know like whatever Spock does, it's going to be for the good of the ship and the good of the many, I think is I just love that respect is given to him because you hear it in Ortega. She's like, waiting on your command, sir, like waiting on your command, Captain. So she's saying like, why aren't you letting me fucking shoot? We all know I have to shoot. But the respect is there is of like, I'm waiting for you. I'm waiting for your signal. And I respect the time it's going to take you to give that to me. And I trust that you are going to lead us in the right direction. So
sure.
I really enjoyed that.
I feel like there's going to be, and I know we're so beholden to the lore and the timeline and the original series. And that was the one thing that I liked about the J.J. Abrams thing was that it literally was a different timeline. Right. Mm-hmm. So that anything could happen. Mm-hmm. And they were establishing that from the very beginning. It's like, we wanted to do something new.
Yeah.
I feel like there's going to be, if you're starting off the first episode with this, there's going to be a major death. And it might be contradictory to what you know of the original series or anything else coming after that. Mm-hmm. There has to be. Otherwise, why do you do this? I don't know. I mean, if there's not, it's fine. But I can almost guarantee that there is going to be something. Someone's going to die that you don't expect by the end of the season. Maybe. So, yeah.
Honestly, maybe. I don't know. That's a good guess. So, yeah, we finished the episode. I have some more blood wine facts to throw at you because Spock gets on the fucking comm with the Klingon. He's like, hey, dude, sorry. And the Klingon's like, how can we trust you? Let's settle it over alcohol.
Listen, the first time they did the blood wine thing and the second time they did a blood wine thing, it doesn't seem like any of the Enterprise crew, La'an or Spock, like are actually affected by the blood wine. So like, who the fuck cares about the fucking blood wine?
Incredibly interesting because blood wine is canonically twice as potent as whiskey. And the first person...
But only for Klingons.
No.
Apparently.
No, for humans.
Yeah, but like, okay, but La'an is a human?
La'an is a human.
But she's not affected at all.
And that's why I'm very interested to see what she's going on with. Because we see Spock have a hangover. And canonically, alcohol does not impact Vulcans very much. They have to drink it into like Klingon capacity to start to feel the effects. So if Spock drank enough to give himself a hangover, how did La'an outdrink a Klingon and not feel the effects of it? Because there has to be a reason, because the first human known to drink blood wine is Captain Archer from the Enterprise. And the Klingons like lost their shit when
You
he
just
did
said
that.
from the show Enterprise.
From the
not
show
from
Enterprise, yeah. I'm
'cause
sorry.
There were like a lot of captains of the Enterprise.
You're right. I apologize.
Yes.
Was Captain Archer from the 2000s reboot of Star Trek called Enterprise. He was the first person to drink blood wine with a Klingon, and all the Klingons lost their fucking minds because they were
not
like,
anymore.
humans don't drink this shit.
Sure.
So that's just kind of funny. And then, yes, interesting to see that Spock has a hangover and La'an was unimpacted.
Sure.
So we wrap this up in a nice bow. Admiral April berates Spock and is glad that peace has been made, but he warns, like, you got to stay in line because this could have very easily went the other way. Spoiler alert, it will. And
Why?
I will talk about that in 1 second. And then we end with I'm glad that we're not like fighting two fronts at once because we see a Gorn attack ship on the map. And
Sure.
that's what I obviously, every fucking captain except the one I'm trying to think about, Pike is alluding to in the beginning of like, there's something in the air that I can't put my hands on. And it's because we're on the brink of war with the Gorn.
Yeah, but I don't care. Because like what? Like, is it going to happen now in this series? Is the Gorn thing, or does it happen like later on? Is this just like seeding the thing that happens
the
like
Gorn
later?
War is not something that happens in the original series.
That's what I'm saying.
Because in the one episode that we meet a Gorn in the original story, Kirk is like, what the fuck is that? He literally has never seen or heard of these things before.
What is a Gorn?
The like lizard alien guys.
Yeah, well, we never really got a good look.
No, we got a little bit of their energy in the first season. And we know that the Gorn
So wait, the
play
lizard,
a big...
the famous like lizard fight that he has on like the
Yes, that's the
thing
Gorn.
where it's like a Coliseum almost kind of like fight
With like the lizard costume. Yeah, that's a Gorn. Obviously, it'll look better.
Then why do they care about the Gorns if like they don't?
What?
What is it? So when does this war happen or not happen?
Well,
or
probably
whatever?
like now-ish. Like we're going to explore that now.
So it's going to happen for like a couple of years before the original series.
That's
and
what
then
I'm
we're
guessing.
at peace again and then we don't know.
That's confusing because...
Again, it doesn't make it a threat to me.
Because if a war happens, why wouldn't Kirk know? And Spock is on the crew. He would know because he's on the crew now.
Beholden. Let's talk. Okay, hold on. So this is the thing. This is the thing that bothers me a little bit about Star Trek. Is that we are so beholden to the original series to the point where the Vulcan hairstyle has not changed in hundreds of fucking years. Our hairstyles changed from decade to decade, year after year, and like no one has said like, hey, like Spock hasn't come in with the second season Strange New Worlds being like, I want to try something new. You know, like the thing that describes a Vulcan is not the ears, it's the hairstyle, because the creators are so very specific about like, this is just the way it's been done. You know, this is the way the original series did it, and this is how we have to represent. How else do you know that they're fucking Vulcans? And to me, that is like a showcasing of like a non-creative mind that people like are afraid to branch out from the original series, which kind of annoys me. The fact that like I'm not a Star Trek nerd, where I'm like, we're so beholden to this thing, and I'm like, here's the thing. I love sci-fi shows that represent races where they're not exactly the same cookie cutter kind of thing. Because I think that's a quote unquote racist thing.
Yeah.
When you're like, they all look the same. I'm like, no, like I loved like Valerian, which is a terrible movie, but like a fun sci-fi where it represents like different races, like, and they all look different. Sometimes Star Wars, when they actually show an actual other character of another race, which is not often because they always like to create a new race or create a new droid or whatever instead of like actually showcase another one of another race, which is annoying. But when they do, it looks different, very different. You can see why, like, that race, like, they don't all look the exact same. There's characteristics of the same thing. To me, hairstyle is not a characteristic. That's a thing that can change amongst the Vulcans. But the thing to me that makes a Vulcan is the mind and the ears and like maybe the sideburns, right? But like it doesn't have to be a hairstyle. Like if a hairstyle is religious or I guess tribal in a sense, like that makes sense because there's like a culture behind it. Like they don't change things because it has something to do with like their a religion or whatever, like how, like why they, you know, like Samoans like love their hair long or braid or something. Like Amish people or Jewish people like have the tassels in their hair, like because it's a religion thing. You know, you don't cut certain parts of their hair. This doesn't feel to me as any of those things. This feels to me as people saying like, well, this is how the original series did it. And if you need an explanation, here's a Wikipedia thing.
Yeah.
Here's a thing that I can say like, well, it's because of this thing. And that is not satisfactory to me. And that goes into the Gorn kind of lore and all those kind of things where I'm like, what? Like you keep trying to explain things that happen in the original series as opposed to just giving us like something new. You know, like branch out a little bit. We just talked about Canon and how beholden we are to it in the last 2 episodes of our podcast. And like Star Trek to me feels stuck. And the reason it's been stuck is because of those things. And I wish I'm like, we're so beholden to like Enterprise and all those different things. And as much as I love Strange New Worlds, and I think it's doing something new and feeling like Star Trek, as you mentioned, of like old or whatever, it's still the Enterprise. It's still like right before the original series, and we can't break away from what happened there. And it's really annoying, which is why I think people love Picard or the Next Generation, is because it's hundreds of years after. You can do something else, you know? So I don't know.
I think that's a really interesting take because like with Discovery, they tried to make too many shows happen in like a very small amount of time, in my opinion. And that's why Discovery wasn't working for me for the first 2 seasons. But there's a time jump and now Discovery is like 1,000 years in the future. So now
what?
So season 3, the time jump. Like they're not anywhere near here. They're in a different part of space.
Time travel.
So, and I don't know because I haven't watched it, but I know it does not. It's I wrote it down. It's literally like 1,000 years into the future.
Oh my God.
And it's kind of nice because it gives them freedom to like discover new things.
Exactly.
But that's another reason why I think that Strange New Worlds is better received than Discovery, because Strange New Worlds is what drew most people to the Star Trek series originally, which is the wholesomeness, the fact that the good guy is always going to win, that we're going to wrap it up because we always do the right thing. And you can always count on us to do the right thing and do the thing proudly and make sure that everybody else is safe. And that is kind of a tired concept. But for me and in the universe, like it works because that's what Star Trek is to so many fans. Regardless of if you come in the original series, Next Generation, Voyager, it's all the same concept of like, we are the good guys because we're always trying to do what is right and just and honest. And because of that, like success is had. So I think this is an interesting jumping off point.
There's a difference like between like themes being the same, but like Spock can change his haircut. Like we can allow him to change his haircut.
But wouldn't change his haircut.
But why can't we? But why not?
But why would he? Why are you so hung up on the
hundreds of years old? Why can't he change his haircut?
Mattias, why haven't you changed your haircut in a couple
years?
Why haven't
you changed your hair?
I did, but I kept my hair long for 27 years.
I did change my hair. My hair grows. My thing is not that he hasn't changed it in like 10 years. It's the fact that he hasn't changed it in like 400 years. Like,
let him like what he likes, Mattias.
But it's every Vulcan. It's
They're
not
conformists.
just him. Oh my God, Shannon. I don't like
understand.
it.
I understand what you're saying, but
but that's the thing. It's like you can justify it, but it literally is a lack of creativity to me.
Do you feel the same way about Klingons?
Klingon, their head has to be like if that's
and they all
like,
have long hair.
If their forehead is Klingons seem more tribal. That's why I said like if it's a tribal thing or like a religious thing, this to me like Klingons are very specific. Because like if you were to tell me that like all Klingons believe that like you don't cut your hair because it's a sign of like lack of strength or whatever, like because when like samurai like have to cut their bun off or whatever after they've lost their honor, that is like a very specific like guess, hairstyle that they carry. And like the longer their hair is, the longer they've been in battle or things like that.
Mm-hmm.
I believe that of Klingons.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know that there's been anything that told me that like Vulcan should have this, except for the fact that like people in our world and our writers and our creators say like, well, that's just the way it's done. That's
no doubt.
problem to me.
And it's interesting because with the Klingons, like the next generation took the impetus to be like, we're changing the way Klingons look. And everyone loved it.
Yeah.
And then that became the way Klingons look. And then another show had to come in and retcon why they look so different.
Yeah.
So if anyone ever does decide, because the women Vulcans all have different hairstyles. They're all different.
Yeah.
But the men all have that same haircut.
We have a sexy Spock this season, like the sexiest Spock I think we've had. And I feel like we can make him even more sexy if we just like got rid of that fucking haircut.
Yeah,
And
but
we can
Spock can't
let
have a
him
different
branch
haircut.
out a little bit. He's
No.
becoming more human, Shannon.
No. He's going to go through a
He
bangs
let down the
phase.
walls. Let's give him some different hairstyles.
Oh my
All
God.
I'm asking for. Let's get a Vulcan that doesn't have the... Like, why put Ethan Peck through this is what I'm saying.
Oh my God.
Am I the only one?
Yes.
We are all beholden to the Vulcan haircut because we have to be, because we are all very specific. With like, it's the canon. It's the Vulcan way.
We like the haircut. So yeah, let's talk about what's to come. And by that, I mean, I'm going to just dump a ton of information on you, and I'm very excited to see how you feel about it. Are you ready?
Do you know that it's what to come, or you think it's...
This is what my hypothesis is of what is to come.
Sure.
I have a lisp, and that was very hard for me to say. Okay. So at the end of the episode, we have that little, here we go. I'm going to come over here. Where did I write that quote down? Next time, and there better not be a next time, it'll be your commission, is what Admiral April says to Spock. And I said, spoiler alert, there will be a next time, because Spock does steal a ship and go rogue again.
In the original
series.
Yeah, we're not going to see that here, though.
So hear me out.
Do you think they're going to redo the original
No, I
series?
don't. But
What if they do? What if they reboot it? I'm sorry. That
hold
was
on.
just-
Okay. So,
Because they can.
they could. So,
What if Ethan Peck wants to play Spock forever?
do it.
Okay.
So the original pilot episode
Sure.
of Star Trek features Pike and number one, as we see them here.
Right. The pilot.
In the
that
very original pilot
is
that
erased
like
from memory.
nobody saw until the 80s, basically.
Yeah.
It's called The Cage, and just a quick little overview. It's Talos 4. There's a distress signal. Pike sends a landing party. He gets captured. We find out that it's a planet of telepaths, and they can create reality for themselves and for anyone else. So he goes through a series of events of they're trying to see if they can get him to fall for this girl, Vinna. And he's strong enough that he sees through the veil. He knows what's happening, and you just find out they're trying to repopulate their planet. So if they can get him to hook up with her, they can start the repopulation process.
This isn't the pilot?
This is the pilot.
Guys, Star Trek is weird.
This is the pilot.
Okay, go ahead.
So, a lot of things happen, but ultimately Pike is allowed to leave.
Chat's excited.
Pike is allowed to leave
Yeah.
only if they promise to never speak of anything that's happened here. They don't want anyone to know about the Telonians. They don't want anyone to know about their powers. They don't want anyone coming to their planet. That's the only way that they'll let Pike and his crew leave. They agree to that. Pike wants to take Vinna. We find out that she can't leave because she was on a shuttle that crashed there 18 years ago. And the only way that she has like life is by staying on that planet, living in that illusion. So
like Lost.
no, not at all. So the crew leaves. They promise not to say anything about Talos 4, and they create an illusion, Captain Pike, to live with Vinna. So that's the pilot that was never seen. In the original series, we get a two-parter, The Menagerie, which is when we have Kirk and Spock. This is when we see Spock go rogue and steal the ship. We find out that Pike is now wheelchair bound. He's extremely disfigured, and he can't speak. The only way he can communicate is by an amber light on his chair that blinks once for yes or twice for no. We know this because he was in an accident, there was an explosion, and while he was trying to save other cadets' lives, he was exposed to like delta radiation. And that's why he's in this decrepit state. Spock doesn't know about this, but as we know, Spock is his original right-hand man. So when he finds out that Pike is in this condition, he takes the Enterprise and like the crew members that are on it, and he tries to take Pike to Talos 4. And that's where Pike lives the rest of his life, is on Talos 4 with the illusion that he is able-bodied with the girl that he fell in love with when he was there in the original series.
With the illusion? But he still live. I don't know.
So he's still wheelchair bound and disfigured and everything, but in that world, the illusion that he's living is that none of those things are true. So he lives in his mind now with Vinna, and like
so they're all just like hanging out like in a room, like
in a cave, just like chilling, but they're all like in their minds.
God.
So that's the end of Pike's story as we know it. But we have not seen that battle, that explosion that gets Pike to that point. So what I think Star Trek Strange New Worlds is going to explore is how Pike gets into that position.
We can change. Canon doesn't have to. We can change it. Don't make that. Don't make that Pike's fate. I don't want him to be.
The reason people like Strange New Worlds is because it follows so closely to canon, and we talked about this in our last episode with The Last of Us. The reason The Last of Us works so well is because it stuck to what the story dictated.
Well, but
and the parts we didn't like were the parts that strayed away from the
not
story.
all the parts that we liked,
but plenty of parts that we weren't fans of.
We liked a lot of things.
So I'm just saying, if that's what happens to Pike, and we are already setting up, he's seen his death, he's seen it in an explosion and fire. That's what's coming to him. So that's my hypothesis, is that if that's 10 years from now, we've got plenty of seasons and time to like fall in love with him and see what kind of captain he is and build these relationships. But ultimately, like, that's his fate. And that's really like dark and exciting for me. But yeah, the pilot episode is called The Cage, and the two-parters,
be a happy show.
LOL, is called The Menagerie, and they're two very good episodes. So if you want any bit of like background to Strange New Worlds, I would watch those 3 episodes just to kind of get a taste of, unfortunately, where we're going.
What was this episode called?
This episode is called The Broken Circle.
What was the broken circle?
I don't know.
God damn it.
And that is another thing that interests me, is usually with the title of an episode, I'm like, here's why. What is this? What circle has been broken? I have another question I want to ask you that involves a visual aid. I'm going to show Mattias, and I'm going to speak it to the camera here. One of the promo posters that I really like for the show is super colorful, and it has our like primary crew members here. What you notice is there's one stripe that's black and white, and it's Nurse Chapel.
Oh, so like everyone else is in color, and it's not like the stripe, but like her character and her world is in black and white, like a old-timey film, whereas everything else is in color.
And all the characters that are in like a colorful background, they don't match their background. So there's like yellow shirts on purple floors and red shirts and a green sky. Nurse Chapel is pushed behind everyone, and she's in the black and white coloring of the universe that is her stripe. I think that's intentional, and I don't know why.
Sure.
So I'm wondering, even the Enterprise, so if you guys want to look, maybe we'll post this in the podcast, but the Enterprise is flying like across all these panels, and even the Enterprise is in color in that black and white stripe.
Let me see. What do you mean?
See how the Enterprise flies over it?
No, it's not in color. I guess it's
it's gray, I guess, but you know what I mean? Like,
sure.
It feels intentional that Nurse Chapel specifically is in that energy.
What are you trying to tell me?
I'm not sure. It just is kind of making me think. That's why I asked earlier, did any of the Star Trek episodes shoot in black and white? Because I was wondering if maybe like we visit the original series, or if they're showing us that like there's something about Nurse Chapel that's going to happen.
There's definitely like a separation of like some characters in the same thing. There's definitely like a separation. Everyone's going to have their own thing. I feel like this whole episode is setting us up to have everyone go off on their own and do something, and I don't know what that is or what that means. I'm interested to find out because I do like all these characters.
Yeah.
But I also don't want anything bad to happen to them. So we can change the canon, guys. We don't have to.
Well, it's funny that you're like, oh, I don't think I like this episodic, like, I kind of wanted them to kill off a main character. And now I tell you, like, no, we're headed down a really dark path. So enjoy the sunshine now.
I'm saying, like, they want to, like, again, they want to have their cake and eat it too. Like, they want to, like, allude to something happening, but they don't have the courage to actually do it. I don't mind having a, like, happy episode wrap up at the end of the thing. I love that about the first series. I love that about this show, that, like, I feel like I'm coming in, exploring a conflict mentally, and then, like, learning how they all deal with it. Kind of like in a Ted Lasso way, everyone ends up being, like, super positive and like really helping each other. And I love that. I love that kind of show. But then, like, you're literally like, but if you're going to set up this character and, like, almost give him something where you're going to lead me to believe that he's going to die, and I'm like, but you don't have the courage to do it. Like, I don't know how to feel, It's like, are there stakes or are there not stakes,
Right.
Like, are you actually going to change something or not change something? And it doesn't, to me, that's not, it's a storytelling thing, not necessarily in, like, the way they go about it. It's like, why lead me down a certain path if it's not emotionally going to, like, connect with me at the end of it, right? If you're not going to pay it off.
Well, I think it's gonna, I think what you want to happen is going to happen as the series progresses. I was reading some interviews from the cast about the fact that, like, the jaunty, like, excitingness of the first season is still relevant, but that this second season really goes to, like, a dark place for, like, a handful of characters.
Yeah, that's fine.
And if, like, that off comment of Nurse Chapel and Dr. Mbenga were both on that moon during the Klingon War, that's a critical thing. The fact that they can fight and they take, like, fucking super soldier serum, I think that's going to be a thing. So I think we're just setting up, like, here's the Doctor, here's how he is in this sort of stressful situation, and we're going to keep revisiting this theme of, like, trauma and battle and like, survival for him, I think. And possibly that'll bleed into Nurse Chapel and as she, like, creates distance and maybe does her archaeological studying. I
don't want people to die for there to be stakes. Like, I feel like there's a misrepresentation here. I just feel like there was, like, a clear, to me, like, connecting dots being drawn, and then you pull the rug out, and I'm like, well, that wasn't, like, satisfying. Like, you're setting up a conflict and they get over it easily, and there's no consequences whatsoever. Feels just thematically unsatisfactory. And it doesn't need to be, like, a death, but, like, nothing technically happened that episode except for getting the gang back together. We learned things about the characters, but, like, there's no consequences, no stakes. Even the consequences that could have happened are like, well, don't let it happen next time. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's no war now, but maybe I get that it's coming later and, like, we might be setting things up for later, but you're not really doing a very good job of, like, making me believe that those stakes are actually there.
Yeah. Because it is my idea. Like, I did not, and probably because I've watched Star Trek before, I'm like, these two are not dying. There was never a moment where I'm like, oh, we're setting up deaths. I was like, nope, they're going to shoot themselves out of an airlock and everything's going to be fine. But again, maybe setting up what's going to happen in future episodes. Like, they took that serum. We know it affects them and has long-term effects on them based on what Nurse Chapel was saying. Like, are you sure you want to do this? You know how it impacts you. And it's like, if they were shot out into an airlock and almost died and fought through, like, 22 paper Klingons, it's like, maybe we're not seeing the ramifications of that at the end of episode 1, but are there lingering effects that are going to, like, attack our characters as the episodes progress? And we're going to see that just slowly unfold of, like, oh yeah, you thought you got out of this scot-free. Pike, you thought you were going to go save the day with Una. Spock, you thought you got away with stealing the Enterprise. And then, like, shit just starts to crumble from the bottom up.
Sure, maybe. I don't know. We can never judge a season by the one episode. There's always, like, more and more episodes. I'm not trying to be critical of, like, the season or the show.
But it's important to note.
I just don't, like, it. There's just things that again, if we're just being so beholden, like if you're right, then sure. But if you're wrong and they don't set it, we were like very sure about Yellow Jackets. Like, well, this is clearly what they're like setting up. And then none of that happens. And we're like, well, that was annoying and unsatisfactory. And it makes me like, why do we go through this kind of thing? You know?
Yeah.
I would rather have the joyful, buoyant, whatever it is kind of show that we had with the first season. And like, that's fine. Stick to your lore. Give us something like new worlds, new conundrums or whatever, solve it at the very end. That's fine. I can deal with that. Then don't give me all of this teasing of like something's going to happen, someone's going to die, or like all these things are like, well, we know you're going to survive. Like, why are we even dealing with like,
well, if he's not in a red shirt, he's not dying. So as soon as he goes on an away mission in a red shirt, he's dead. So yeah, that's this episode.
Well, most of our crew has red shirts on, don't they?
What are you looking forward to maybe like seeing or discovering more through this season in particular?
Nurse Chapel and Spock boning in a respectful, whatever kind of sense. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Anything else?
I don't know. I just want to see more of Pike. Like, where the heck does he like our main character? Really interesting. I wonder if he's gonna be like sitting out like most of the season for any sort of reason, you know? Or I'm assuming the next episode would just be him and Una, maybe not the crew. I don't know, but he's by far like we need him. Like to keep the crew together. If they can be fine on their own, that's the thing. It's like if they're fine on their own and Spock is like Spock is a perfectly good captain. Then why do we need Pike around? You know, to keep them in line or to make sure that they're always making the right decision. All those kind of things. You know, I don't feel like we're there yet. And like why? But you're also representing them as like there's no consequences for what they're doing. Like even he's gonna be fine with it probably. So like I don't know. Like it's like really weird. Like I want more of him. I just want his struggle and his deal and like his, tough love, whatever ends up being in certain ways. Like I just want more of those things. I would love to see more of these like conundrums that we're talking about. Because the thing that I remember about Strange New Worlds is like we encounter a race that like is going to have this child become like a source of knowledge and whatever for the rest of its life, but it has to be in pain while it does it. Like, and I'm like, that is like a conundrum that sticks with me. Cause I'm like, what would you do? Like, how would they deal with that? Like, this is interesting to think about. Like, if you could be that for the rest of humanity, would you do it? Like, is there really like the smartest person, like, is it worth sacrificing that or like putting someone through pain? Like those are the kinds of conversations I want to have. We're not getting that yet, Yeah. And I want more of that. Yeah. That's what I loved about this series. And I want to struggle with those questions more. I want to meet new races and see what their cultures are like and kind of expand my mind on like what things could be. So that's what I'm hoping for. Yeah. Strange New Worlds. So
it's great. Cool.
You? Thoughts?
I mean, I'm just happy to be here. I'm along for the ride, honestly. Like, give it to me. Well,
that's unsatisfactory. You wanted me to answer the question.
Yeah, and the first thing you said is the joke of, I want to see Spock and Nurse Chapel bone. So
that's what you wanted?
You can give me this one. If you can answer with a joke, I can answer with a joke.
You have a thought.
I have plenty of thoughts. I think I voiced them pretty clearly. I'm interested to see how the story follows canon and how it sets up this 10-year gap in between what we know and where the original series starts. Do you want to
see more Kirk?
No.
Because he exists.
Sure.
He's around.
Yeah. He'll be in like they shot an episode in Canada, so it's like the fucking holodeck episodes for me, but for this season, and it's just Kirk and La'an.
Wait, yeah, we also know that like Kirk shows up and goes to Earth, and that was your main question after the trailer was like, wait, he's from what, Oklahoma? And you're like, And he's like, I'm from outer space.
Yeah.
I don't know what a revolving door is.
Yeah.
So like, what is going on with?
Yeah. So I'm interested. And again, it's a one-off episode. So I don't even know how often Paul Wesley's in this season. And honestly, I wouldn't mind if he's not really in the season because he shouldn't be.
That's what I'm saying. Like, we don't need to be so beholden to we can give us something new. You know, if you're only like teasing things that are going to happen later, then to me that's unsatisfactory. Then I have to watch all these things. I was like, no, give me
you
something.
have to watch the whole
what
season.
Are the things?
Yes.
No, give me the things that are going to pay off in this show, not in another show, you know? So that's just me.
Yeah.
That's just what I want. But it's not that I'm not enjoying it. I still love these characters.
Yeah.
Y'all can hate on me all you want. I hear all of you.
I don't know what he's
hating
talking
on
about.
Mattias, thinking like he's a downer because he's bringing up things.
And it's cool, but like you are very critical of shows and media, and I think that's good.
Not all the time. I love this show.
I know. That's what I'm saying. It's like you can still love a show and be critical of it. You can see where it's like flaws are and want more from it.
I'm just saying all the things you wanted to talk to me about had something to do
with how it ties into
another series.
Yeah.
And that is the frustrating thing to me as a person who's only watched this series. Is like, well, what are the things about this series?
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Yes.
That is not I don't think it's that critical. I think it's just the bare minimum, you know?
No,
it's like
that's
what I should be
totally
asking
fair.
for.
And I think, again, it's like if you're new to Trek and you don't know all of these things and all you have is the information in front of you, it feels like probably what the original series originally felt like, which was just like kind of corny, kind of campy. You watch this group of people like fuck around with no consequences. Nothing bad happens. No one important dies. It's only the like random red shirts that you don't care about. Like that's what the original series started as. So I'm sure for some people, like it does still kind of feel like that, where it's like it's episodic. It's not super deep yet. And you're just kind of enjoying spending time with these characters.
I'm not, but you're misrepresenting. I'm not asking for it to be super deep though. That's not what I'm asking for it to be. I'm just like asking for it to not be like so beholden to like canon and lore and like only setting up things that are going to like pay off like in a different season that I'm not watching. I'm not watching that season.
Right.
You know, I'm watching this series. I'm watching these characters. I want to like figure out what they're about. You know, I like assuming I have never met them originally, you know?
Well,
so
like this Spock is falling in love with Nurse Chapel and grappling with like what it means to have human emotions, which is
Shannon, that's
interesting.
fine.
And I'm also looking forward to, like I said, the Gorn thing is not part of the original timeline. So that's La'an is not part of the original timeline. So we've got new characters that are coming in with new species that it's like, how are we going to integrate this into what's happening? Because the Gorn are a big part of La'an's history. She has a lot of trauma around them.
Yeah, but you're going to make the Gorn feel like a huge threat, and then they're not going to be, just like the Klingons. So I don't know. That's what I'm like worried about. So yeah, I am interested to see those things, but only if the writers and the creators are as interested in it as I am.
Yeah.
You know, not just more setups and stuff. So
right.
I don't care about lore. Let's
I don't
forget
care
about
lore.
Not that I don't care. Like, you can keep telling me all you want because I have questions, but
sure.
It's like, but I would like to have more questions about the episode and the characters.
Yeah.
Stuff like that.
Yeah. 100%. Well, that's Star Trek Strange New Worlds. Season 2, episode 1, The Broken Circle. What circle is broken? I'm unsure. Get in the comments if you know. Mattias, you wanna watch episode 2 with me next week?
Yes, Shannon. Okay, so everyone's probably hating on me. Go and throw your comments and throw your hatred and like all the things that like I said wrong about your beloved franchise in the comments. Let us know on TikTok. Email us at codependentcontent@gmail.com. Find us on YouTube. That's the best place to give us comments and to talk to us about it because you can timestamp things and it's the best. I like YouTube better in terms of a comment system.
YouTube's great.
Or an email. Like, who's sending emails anymore? That's so Stardate 21 and 45
7.
and whatever. We're in 23 and what are we? Never mind. The point being is you can go to YouTube and do that. You can also find us on Discord, where we have a very small community of people trying to create and live their lives and find a place to engage with other like-minded individuals that are into codependent content. And we record this live every week. We are doing this now on Fridays. Is that correct, Shannon? Because the episode doesn't come out until like Thursday during maybe at midnight, but like, you know, we're not going to stay up till midnight every time, right?
Right.
So we're going to watch it on Thursdays at some point, and then we're going to plan on recording the episode on Fridays. So give you like a whole day to watch that episode and join us. So in the meantime, next Thursday and then next Friday, Shannon, you're gonna be here to argue with me about lore and content and what
you can't argue with someone that doesn't know.
I don't know what you're trying to say there, but that's very confrontational, Shannon. Are you sure you're not a Klingon? Pew, pew, pew. Is the point. Okay, thank you guys for joining us, and we'll see you next week.